You see, there are a lot of broke geniuses. People who know a lot of stuff, really educated, but apply none of it and then as a result get none of the results or the fruit of their great knowledge. 44% of doctors themselves are overweight. They know it all, but are doing none of it themselves. Or as the philosopher Morpheus said, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. So I want to provide you a warning as we go through these core principles of success here. When we talk about them, I don't want to have this happen inside your head. Oh, I already know that. Instead, I want you to ask yourself the question, 3 questions. Number 1 is, am I doing that? Because you might know it, but you might not be doing it. And then the second question is, have I mastered that? Because you might be doing it, but there still might be room for improving and iterating on it, so now that it can actually multiply the success. And then the third, and really the most important question is, would my results prove that I've mastered that? Would my waistline prove that I've mastered that? Would my business, would my bank account, would the intimacy of the relationships that are important to me in my life, if we called your spouse, if we talked to your children, would it prove that you've mastered these principles? And if the answer is, well, just don't call my spouse, then there's still something yet to learn. And as Samuel Johnson said, more often we need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed. So maybe we take something from the back of your mind, bring it to the forefront, give you an action plan, a stepping stone pathway, and now for the first time, we can ignite the knowledge that you've always had into and integrate it into your life, and it'll produce the results that you're after. Okay, if all this is seemingly pretty easy, why is it that people continue to make poor choices? Why can't they make positive choices going forward? So I want to point out 4 traps that are sitting outside this room. Let me point them out so that you don't make the mistake of stepping in these traps. Here's number 1. While you're making these choices, the results in the moment are invisible. And that's where people get faked out.
And it's such a beautiful night. I feel like I'm in the wrong world. So I don't belong in a world where we don't end up together. I don't. There are parallel universes out there where this didn't happen. Where I was with you and you were with me. And whatever universe that is, that's the one with my heart in. I wanted so badly to go back into that dream I had the other night. I tried so hard to go back to sleep. You know, I never thought love was real. I didn't. And now I think life isn't real without it.
While you're making these choices, the results in the moment are invisible. And that's where people get faked out. But I could change your choice structure in an instant if I could take the space-time continuum and collapse it. Which means that the choice you're making right now, spread out over 10 to 15 years, if I could collapse the evidence of that choice and the compound effect of it, I promise you, you would make different choices. For instance, let's say at lunch, you did pick the hamburger and fries. And upon the first bite, your gut explodes, your heart explodes in your chest, and you fall to the ground in a heart attack. Now how do you get like that? One bite at a time. But in the moment, it seems like it doesn't matter, that it's not having an effect. But when you take the accumulated effect of that and collapse it, all of a sudden, you're faced with a different reality. Here's trap number 2. The trajectory all along the way is subtle and deceptive. For instance, let's say that you're on a plane in LAX and you're headed towards LaGuardia. And while that plane is on the tarmac, its nose is pointed directly at LaGuardia. If the nose of that plane is off by only 1 degree, which means from here to here, did you see that? In other words, not much. By the time it gets across the country, it'll be 150 miles off course, 2 states away. And this is what happens in people's lives. They get 15 or 20 years down the road and they go, what happened? How did I end up so fat? How did I end up divorced? How did I end up bankrupt? How did I end up with these estranged relationships in my life? Look, the reality is you might not have made any colossal mistake. You might have just been 1 degree off. And that 1 degree carried over 10 or 15 years. Now you're 150 miles off your intended destination. And it might be disaster. So just like a plane has what's called a gyroscope in the nose of the plane to keep it on track. So no matter what happens, weather or traffic patterns or rerouted, all of a sudden the gyroscope relocks in on the location. Gets off track, relocks on the location. Gets off track, relocks on the location. So it can fly all the way across the country and end up on the exact landing strip 3,000 miles away because of the gyroscope. We all need a gyroscope in our lives as well. Here's the third trap. Immediate gratification. We are addicted as a culture and society to immediate gratification. We want what we want when we want it, and we want it right now. And so when we are faced with a choice, let's say at the end of a nice meal, you're presented with a choice. A warm, scrumptious piece of chocolate cake or a glass of water. What happens if you choose the chocolate cake? What do you get? Joy, heaven, yes, scrumptious, delicious chocolate cake in your mouth. You are rewarded. You are pleasured by making that choice. Now, what happens if you choose the glass of water? What do you get? Bupkis. You get nothing. And right there is the biggest problem you have about making positive choices. If you make a poor choice, you're rewarded. You are pleasured. If you make a positive choice, you get nothing. And you have to deal with that circumstance and outcome. And see, we come by this desire to pleasure ourselves to the nth degree at every turn very early in life. And then we spend the rest of our days trying to pleasure ourselves at every turn. And all day throughout the day, we are literally walking through a minefield of solicitations and temptations on our weakest nature. And if you say yes, you pleasure yourself and you get immediately gratified. And if you say no, you get nothing. That's the biggest challenge you'll be faced with in order trying to integrate these principles into your life. Here's the great paradox. What gives you short-term pleasure? The chocolate cake, holding your ground in an argument, going home to watch the sitcom, the hamburger and fries, creates long-term pain. On the other side of this, short-term pain, calling that person you were intimidated to call, going to the meeting you didn't really want to go to, saying you're sorry when you knew that you were right? These create long-term pleasure. Or put it as my mentor Jim Rohn put it, in life, you will suffer one of two pains. And right there, before I even complete the sentence, there is beauty and wisdom in that first part of the sentence. In life, you will suffer. Like, stop trying to avoid the idea that you will not suffer. You will suffer, but you get to choose your suffering. Good news here. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And the pain of discipline weighs ounces. The pain of going to the gym, the pain of saying you're sorry, the pain of making the phone call, the pain of going to the meeting. However, the pain of regret weighs tons. Divorce, heartache, financial disaster. And so as you're faced with this minefield of choices, realize you get to pick one of two pains. Discipline, regret. Discipline or regret. I think we're perplexed when we're in this moment of choice of whether we do or not do, what we should or what we shouldn't do. And so he put it in this context, which I thought was really great. He said, when you're in doubt, just do the thing you don't want to do. Because usually that's exactly what you should do. To make the call or not make the call. I don't want to make this call. Make the call. To go to this meeting or not go to this meeting. I don't want to go to this meeting. Go to the meeting. To say I'm sorry or not say I'm sorry. I don't want to say I'm sorry. Say you're sorry. Usually, what you don't want to do is exactly what it is that you should do. But see, all that happened was all these little choices in the moment seemed like they were having no effect whatsoever until all of a sudden the compound effect kicked in, and now you see the devastating result. But in the moment, they're invisible. So just like the butterfly effect, right? Everybody knows what the butterfly effect is? Butterfly flaps its wings in one part of the world, creates a tsunami in the other. Every choice you make creates a butterfly effect in your life. Every choice, small, the flap of a butterfly's wings, creates a tsunami on the other side, either in a positive direction or of a negative direction. Every one. There is no binge day. There is no day off. There is no starting on Monday. There is no reset button. Now here's the deal. Your grandmother was right. Everything in moderation. You don't have to be dogmatic. You don't have to be righteous about this. But every single one of them ignites the compound effect in one direction or the other. Every one of them is fighting the trajectory as you go along. So the answer is, because these results are invisible, and you start making these positive choices that in the moment seem to be making no difference at all, the answer is you just have to have patience. Just like the compounding penny, you've got to keep the faith that it is all stacking up, and don't break the mathematical chain. Don't destroy the momentum, just have patience.